That's our session, second session of modern novel, and today we have to discuss D.H. Lawrence and his novel Women in Love. D.H. Lawrence is introduced as one of the key novelists of modern fiction, and his novel resembles Victorian novel or realist novel in many terms. For accurate descriptions, and it also shares certain shades of psychological realism of George Eliot. But distinction of D.H. Lawrence can be seen in four respects. First, D.H. Lawrence writes with the fresh outlook that is called his vision of nature and instinct. So first is his emphasis on nature and human instinct. Second is treatment of those ideas which were once prohibited or untouched in fiction. And here he explicitly discusses sex, mystery of sex, fantasy of sex, and brings it from the unknown world to the known world. Third is his consciousness of a poor man because he was the son of a coal miner, and he has close affinity with that mining industry of England. Fourth one that can be called his vision of nature versus civilization, or agrarian England that was invaded by miners. So these are four distinct features of D.H. Lawrence. His full name is David Herbert Lawrence. He was born in Nottinghamshire, that is actually located in Midland. We can say a rural area that was uncroached by coal mining in his time. Midland is the area that we also see in the novels of George Eliot. His father was illiterate man, a coal miner, and in his semi-autobiographical novel, Sons and Lovers, his father appears through the character of Mr. Morrel, and his mother, Lydia is her name, but she appears as Mrs. Morrel in Sons and Lovers. His mother was a literate lady, and she was a Bible school teacher, has consciousness of civilization, manners, sophistication. There was a conflict between husband and wife, mean Mr. and Mrs. Lawrence, on natural way of life and civilized वे ऑफ लाइफ. जाहिर है कि एक आदमी जो अनपढ़ है, मजदूर है, एक कानकुन है, एक माइनिंग इंडस्ट्री, कोल माइनिंग इंडस्ट्री का एक मजदूर है, और वो अपनी जिंदगी इस तरह से गुजारना चाहता है जो मुंह में आए कहे, जिस तरह चाहे बैठे उठे खड़ा हो, मिले जुले. लेकिन दूसरी तरफ एक ऐसी औरत है जो जिसे हम कह सकते हैं कि सेमी एजुकेटेड, जिसने थोड़ा बहुत इल्म हासिल किया है, और उसके बाद उसकी ये विश है कि उसके बच्चे जो हैं वो मुहज्जब लगे, और इन मुहज्जब बच्चों के लिए जरूरी है कि वो मैनर्स सीखें। जैसे हमारे यहाँ भी जब माएँ थोड़ा बहुत पढ़ती हैं तो वो बच्चों को जो सबसे ज्यादा एम्फोसाइज करती हैं वो मैनर्स का होता है, खबरदार गाली निकाली तो। अब हर बच्चा जब स्कूल जाता है तो आखिर वो किस लिए जाता है? वहां अंग्रेजों के बच्चे भी जब वो स्कूलों में जाते हैं तो शिट, तो मैंने ये सबसे सिंपल गाली है, वरना वो भी बड़ी बड़ी एडवांस गालियां स्कूलों में ही सीखते हैं आके। और हमारे बच्चे भी तो यही काम पहले जो है गली मोहल्लों में हो जाते थे। तो ये, but we expect from children that they should be sophisticated, they should be civilized. That was the expectation of D.H. Lawrence's mother. So he saw in his home a conflict between father and mother, and in his early age, he was supporter of his mother, as we see in his novel Sons and Lovers. But when he grew up, he actually developed a different philosophy of life, and that philosophy of life is more supported for his father. So he is a critique of his mother's outlook towards life and civilization. D.H. Lawrence is a critic of rationality, critic of knowledge of five senses, critic of industry, critic of mechanical way of life, critical of machines. So he is closer to Eastern world rather than Western worlds. That's why in European tradition he is not much eulogized as James Joyce is done. But in Eastern culture, especially in India and Pakistan, D.H. Lawrence is much admired. And we often read his short stories and sometimes his poems, and even there are some of his plays as well, and above all his novels. And these novels, especially a unique trait of his novel, that's the fantasy of a nude human body, and fantasy of touching the body, and the you can say subjective responses to that touch. They are very much uh, fascinating for us, for our youth. He was फोर्थ ऑफ हिज 5 सिबलिंग्स, यानी 5 बहन भाइयों में लॉरेंस का चौथा नंबर था. एंड हिज एल्डर ब्रदर अर्नेस्ट, he died. After the death of his brother, his mother's preoccupation with him grew more and more intense. As I have just mentioned, we can see that mother-son relation in Sons and Lovers. And his mother is seen envious or jealous with the girlfriends of Lawrence. He met different women in his life, and they had different sorts of impressions. One of them is Jessie Chambers. Actually, Lawrence, he got training of in a way school teacher, but that was called pupil instructor, and also who had some responsibilities of school inspection. So when he was getting training of that jobs, one of his classmates was Jessie Chambers, and they had 12-year long relation. She appears through the character of Miriam in Lawrence novel Sons and Lovers. And he also met some other female characters, or some other women, One of them is Louisa. That's her nickname. The real name was Lucy Burrow. And she is thought inspiration for the character of Ursula Brandman in Women in Love. He taught in Davidson Road schools for a short while, and 1910 is a crucial year of his life. That's intense pain of his mother Lydia, who died of cancer. In novel Sons and Lover, we see that to liberate his mother from pain, he protagonist of the novel, Paul, who is identified with D.H. Lawrence, kills his mother. But in reality, he didn't commit murder of his mother, but that he had a wish to do something for his mother to save her from pain, because he was intense lover of his mother. After the death of his mother, he meets the women. She was wife of a German man, Ernest Weekly, who was French professor. यानी था तो जर्मन नेशनैलिटी का, लेकिन इंग्लैंड में वो फ्रेंच पढ़ाया करता था. And Lawrence was student of French language, where he met that Ernest Weekly, and through Ernest Weekly he came into contact with his wife Freda Weekly. Freda and her sisters, they were impressed by ideas of modern psychologist or psychoanalyst Sigmund Freud, and they had made their mind that guilt connected with sex is one of the reasons of morbidity of life. So they were supporters of free sex. They had many, you can say, ideas which were not compatible with their age. So Freda was a woman of life, but we can say that was a misfortune that she married to a professor. Freda was also German, though she had Austrian contacts origin. And when she met D.H. Lawrence, she was mother of 3 children, and that contact, when actually advanced at personal level, Lawrence and Freda, they became lover and beloved. Freda offered herself, offered her body to D.H. Lawrence for sex. But D.H. Lawrence, he had, I have mentioned कि उसके मुख्तलिफ औरतों के साथ ताल्लुकात रहे, but he had an idea that is called serial monogamous. Serial monogamous means एक आदमी जो एक वक्त में सिर्फ एक औरत के साथ ताल्लुक रखता, जब वो जिंदगी में नहीं रहती तो फिर उसके बाद वो दूसरी किसी औरत के साथ कोई रिलेशन रखता. It may sound parallel to serial killer, but that's not serial killer, that's serial monogamous. Lawrence was serial monogamous, and he was impressed by voluptuous Freda and her zest for life. Lawrence missed the same in his life. Probably he saw something in Jesse Chambers in earlier life, but no, Jesse was no more in his contact. So he responded to Frida that he does not want to have a relationship with her for a short while. He preferred to have lifelong relationship with her, and he asked her to marry. So there was no other way except to elope. So a married woman, Freda Weekly Ernest, she eloped with D.H. Lawrence and she became his wife for the rest of his life. And the most important influence on D.H. Lawrence fiction. As I mentioned, their marriage was just a year before the beginning of First World War, and during the war years, they had toured to different countries of Europe, especially Italy, and sometime in Australia, and above all, the most important, Mexico. So that was the time when D.H. Lawrence, like many other writers, he was suspected as a spy, war spy, जासूस के तौर पर इसको शक किया गया because of his travels. During the war years, he met a lady that also appears in this novel, Women in Love, through the character of Hermione Rhodes. That lady is Lady Autolife Morel. Before First World War, D.H. Lawrence has met three important men of literature. You are quite aware of them. That's Bertrand Russell, a leading philosopher of 20th century, a great pacifist, a supporter of civilization, a Cambridge intellectual, essayist, Macaulay, and a great fiction writer, Catherine Mansfield, whose short stories you may have read. BA में भी Catherine Mansfield की एक short story है, The Fly के नाम से. इस तरह गार्डन पार्टी कैथरीन मैन्सफील्ड की एक फेमस शॉर्ट स्टोरी है. और जब मैंने कभी इंटरमीडिएट में फर्स्ट ईयर का स्टूडेंट था तो हमारे जमाने में द डॉल्स हाउस एक शॉर्ट स्टोरी होती थी, दैट वाज रिटन बाय कैथरीन मैन्सफील्ड. Actually, D.H. Lawrence and Catherine Mansfield both were against or hater of middle class. Or one of the reason of, you can say, coming close to each other, that was hate against middle class, hate of D.H. Lawrence and hate of Catherine Mansfield, because middle class is known for certain snobbery and prudery, and that were thought the vices of civilization. These three idealists, Bertrand Russell, Macaulay, Catherine Mansfield, and most importantly, D.H. Lawrence. When they met, they saw a vision of the new world, जिसमें हमारे ज़माने के दुखों का इलाज हो सके. For that purpose, they established Renan, but that was a plan which ultimately was fated to fail. Plan was failed because D.H. Lawrence and Bertrand Russell, they had quite opposite views. अगर आप Bertrand Russell के एसेज MA इंग्लिश में पढ़ के आए हैं, पंजाब यूनिवर्सिटी के सिलेबस में वो पढ़ाया जाते हैं, अनपॉपुलर एसेज, और उसमें एक इम्पोर्टेंट ऐसे है द फ्यूचर ऑफ मैनकाइंड. और फ्यूचर ऑफ मैनकाइंड में बर्टन रसल जो है वो ये आइडिया प्रेजेंट करता है कि अब वर्ल्ड वॉर के बाद इंसान का क्या फ्यूचर है, और वो कहता है कि जो इंसान का असल प्राइड है, दैट इज सिविलाइजेशन. तो अगर थर्ड वर्ल्ड वॉर हुई तो सिविलाइजेशन, ह्यूमन रेस विल बी डिप्राइव्ड ऑफ सिविलाइजेशन, दे विल हैव नो मोर सिविलाइजेशन. तो सिविलाइजेशन की जितनी तरक्की की है उसके लिए हम जीरो पे पहुंच जाएंगे. सो वी शुड डू समथिंग टू सेव दिस civilization, and he suggests that there should be the world government that can stop war in the world. So Bertrand Russell is in favor of civilization. If you have read Bertrand Russell's essay Science and Values, or Place of Science in a Liberal Education, or his essay Philosophy and Politics, you can see that he is very much admirer of empiricist philosophy and democratic way of life. He thinks that democracy can save human race. इसके उल्ट D.H. Lawrence is anti-democracy. He was a fascist man in his outlook. और ये दोनों जो पर्सनैलिटीज थी, रसल और लॉरेंस, इनके दरमियान ये बहुत बड़ा मसला था कि लॉरेंस के ख्याल में तमाम मसाइल की वजह सिविलाइजेशन है, मॉडर्न सिविलाइजेशन है, मशीन्स हैं, इंडस्ट्री हैं, एडवांसमेंट. जबकि बर्टन रसल के ख्याल में यही इंसान का प्राइड है जो इंसान ने अब तरक्की की. तो बर्टन रसल वाज इन सपोर्ट ऑफ मॉडर्न वर्ल्ड, he was in support of democracy, he was in support of capitalism, and he was in support of peace. He was in support of rational outlook towards life. So जब हर कोई अपनी अपनी बात कहेगा, चारों मेंबर्स अपना अपना विजन लेके आएंगे, तो कैसे जो रेननिम प्लान है वो आगे बढ़ता. अल्टीमेटली दैट प्लान फेल्ड. आफ्टर सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर, after First World War, Freda and Lawrence, they lived at Taormina, that's in Sicily, Italy, and later on they reached Mexico. There was a wealthy American widow, Mabel Dodge Stern. She invited them to join a colony of artists at Taos in New Mexico, where they lived for 3 years. And actually D.H. Lawrence was dead against in purchase and sale of land. So he never made any, you can say, ownership in his life. किसी जमीन का ये अपनी जिंदगी में मालिक नहीं बना. But Freda actually bought that farm and they lived there. With Freda, his relation was of love-hate, very competitive, as well as you can say one partner is always missing the other. During his stay at Kiowa Ranch farm, he also met Aldous Huxley, another leading writer of 20th century, a great prose writer, known for his essays Adonis and Alphabet and others, his idea of virginity of thought, and sci-fi novels, we can say, or utopian novel or dystopian novels, Brave New World. D.H. Lawrence, physically, he was a fragile man. He suffered from pulmonary hemorrhage that ultimately caused his death as well. And he was also suffering from tuberculosis. When he died on March 2nd, 1930, and before his death in 1928, he had written it, the most controversial novel of British, Lady Chatterley's Lover. When he died on his own wish, he was cremated because he wanted to be diffused or penetrated in soil. He was much impressed by Indian idea. So he was cremated and then his ashes were thrown in the Mediterranean Sea. So that's the life of D.H. Lawrence. D.H. Lawrence had poetic vision of life. That's why his novels are also called vision novels, and they are linked with novels of Henri Balzac of France and Leo Tolstoy of Russia. His poetic vision is based on intuition rather than reason. Intuition यानी वजदान की बात, मन की बात, जो दिल में आता है, जो फर्स्ट थॉट है ह्यूमन बीइंग का, a spontaneous idea, not a well thought rational plan. यहीं से लॉरेंस की साइंस, इंडस्ट्री और मशीन के साथ वो जंग शुरू होती है जो उसके नॉवेल्स में हमें देखने को मिलती है. His faith in human instinct causes his distrust in intellect. His famous quotation is, "Blood is wiser than intellect." And in this quotation, blood stands for instinct. तो शुरू से इंसानों की जो तालीम और तहजीब गुजरी है, वहां हमें ये बताया गया कि इंसान की जो इंस्टिंक्ट होती है वो इवल की तरफ इंक्लाइंड है. That's why human beings should be trained, educated, groomed in this way that they can control their impulses and instinct, and they can work using their reason and mind. 18th century was epitome of that tradition. यानी 18वीं सदी जो है वो अकल के लिहाज से अरूज का जमाना था और इंस्टिंक्ट को दबाने, नेचर को दबाने के एक जमाना था, और उसी में इंसानों ने पॉलिटिकली वो शऊर हासिल किया जिसको अनलाइटनमेंट आइडियल्स कहते हैं. तो डीएच लॉरेंस वाज अगेंस्ट दीज अनलाइटनमेंट आइडियल्स एज वेल, यानी कि इक्वालिटी के खिलाफ था. वो कहते थे ये सारी चीजें ना बस लफ्जों में होती हैं, रियलिटी से इनका ताल्लुक नहीं है. And that is seen in this novel, Women in Love, through the character of Rupert Burke. He was impressed by German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche and his idea of individuality, his ideas of unconventional thought, his idea of Superman, but actually Nietzsche calls it superego. ये सुपर ईगो फ्रॉइड की सुपर ईगो से बिल्कुल डिफरेंट है. तो नीचे सुपर ईगो और नीचे सुपरमैन, द मैन हु कैन क्रिएट द यूनिवर्स, द मैन हु कैन think beyond the existing systems, existing parameters. So he was a Nietzschean in his tendencies. Rupert Birkin, protagonist of Women in Love, is also Nietzschean in his philosophy. Friedrich Nietzsche, D.H. Lawrence, and Lawrence mouthpiece Rupert Birkin in Women in Love, they are ardent critic of modern civilization and mechanical life. कल पहले भी अभी मैंने वजाहत कर दी है कि मॉडर्न लाइफ को क्यों पसंद नहीं करता था. Consciousness of the poor, he is greatly admired that he actually knows what the poor feel, what is their consciousness, and what is their philosophy. It is neither sentimental nor romantic or fanciful, and nor you can say target of any snobbery of the elite. D.H. Lawrence is much admired for depiction of human emotions and, most important, pre-conscious impulse of characters. इस फ्रेज को जरा दोबारा पढ़ते हैं और इसको अपने जहनों में बिठा लें. ये लॉरेंस का सबसे स्ट्रॉन्ग इंट्रोडक्शन है he tries to show pre-conscious impulse of characters. यानी जो impulses होती हैं वो gradually हमारे subconscious से निकलकर हमारे conscious का part बनती हैं. तो before they enter the domain of consciousness, what is their state? That is captured through D.H. Lawrence, and that is the reason D.H. Lawrence is declared the modernist novelist. Taboos ideas, for example, idea of sex in literature, that was distabooed in his work, and he made explicit portrayal of sex, especially in his novels. I can say somehow in Women in Love, but to a larger extent in The Rainbow and his Lady Chatterley's Lover. These are titles of his novels. The White Peacock is often thought his first novel. Sons and Lovers is his famous semi-autobiographical novel. The Trespasser, that is about his life in Australia. Plumed Serpent, that's about living in Mexico. He actually made a plan to write a novel that is called The Sisters. And it had two parts. First part is called The Rainbow, and the second part or sequel of The Rainbow was planned as Women in Love. But when The Rainbow was published, it was criticized because of explicit sexual references. So he changed his mind and he tried to write an independent novel. So initially, Women in Love was a sequel of The Rainbow, but after the publication of The Rainbow, Women in Love was crafted in a way that it appeared as an individual novel, and there was no more an idea of the sisters for which The Rainbow and Women in Love are connected. But characters, many characters are significant characters of Women in Love. They are also seen in The Rainbow. For example, Brangman sisters are Rupert Burke. Kangaroo, that's everyone knows. Australia comes to our mind. Aaron's Rod is one of his novel, and Lady Chatterley's Lover, that was written in 1928 but published by his wife Freda in 1930. That is posthumously published, mean after his death, and banned till 1963. Now we have to move towards Women in Love. But before I move to novel, if you have any questions about Lawrence and his idea, you can ask me right now.
सर 1915 में जब ये इसका जो नॉवल था ये बैन हुआ था, जो फर्स्ट वाला था, इसका ये सीक्वल जब ये बैन हुआ था तो ये प्योरिटन्स की वजह से बैन हुआ था, लेकिन हमने जो पढ़ा है तो प्योरिटन्स तो 1642 में आए थे, तो ये तो 19th सेंचुरी की बात हो रही है या 20th सेंचुरी की बात हो रही है, तो काइंडली इसके बारे में थोड़ा सा ब्रीफ कर दें।
जी, वो मैंने अभी वैसे बताया कि वो प्लान ये था कि 2 नावल लिखे जाएंगे और सेकंड नावल वो
गवर्नमेंट आ गई थी इंग्लैंड में।
जी मैं एक्सप्लेन करता हूँ। वो प्लान ये था कि रेनबो के बाद जो है वो द सिस्टर्स लिखा जाए, विमेन इन लव लिखा जाएगा, और ये अल्टीमेटली पूरा नावल जो है वो द सिस्टर्स कहलाएगा। लेकिन वो पहला जो पार्ट जब पब्लिश हुआ तो उसके खिलाफ रिएक्शन हुआ। हम इस रिएक्शन को प्यूरिटन रिएक्शन कह रहे हैं, लेकिन प्यूरिटन पावर्स में नहीं थे। जिस तरह हम 17th सेंचुरी में पढ़ते हैं कि 1642 से लेकर 1660 तक जो प्यूरिटन थे वो पॉलिटिकली इतने पावरफुल हुए थे कि इवन 1649 में उन्होंने किंग चार्ल्स फर्स्ट को एग्जीक्यूट कर दिया था, फांसी दे दी थी, और खुद जो लॉर्ड क्रोमवेल थे वो इंग्लैंड के रूलर बन गए थे, और ये जो पीरियड है ये कॉमनवेल्थ पीरियड कहलाता है। तो यहाँ प्यूरिटन जो हैं वो पावर में आ गए थे, इक्तदार में आ गए थे, और वो फैसले कर रहे थे। ऐसा प्यूरिटन का दौर दोबारा कभी इंग्लिश हिस्ट्री में नहीं आया, लेकिन प्यूरिटन के इन्फ्लुएंसेस इंग्लिश सोसाइटी पर भी रहे और इससे बढ़कर अमेरिकन सोसाइटी पर भी रहे हैं। और दूसरा ये है कि सोसाइटी का एक ओवरऑल जो है वो टेम्परामेंट होता है। इंग्लिश सोसाइटी ओवरऑल, स्पेशली ड्यूरिंग विक्टोरियन एज, दैट वाज टेंडेड टुवर्ड्स जेंटलमैन आइडिया। अगर आप क्या नाम है इसका, विक्टोरियन एज का बहुत बड़ा नॉवलिस्ट है चार्ल्स डिकन्स। डिकन्स का एक नॉवल है द ग्रेट एक्सपेक्टेशंस, तो उसमें पीप के कैरेक्टर के थ्रू हम इस जेंटलमैनशिप के बारे में जानते हैं कि वो क्या बला थी। तो ये जो जितना ज्यादा इंसान जेंटलमैन होता जाता था उतना ही वो नेचर से दूर होता जाता था, क्योंकि वो कल्चर और सिविलाइजेशन की प्री ऑक्यूपेशन के साथ अपने आप को सोफिस्टिकेटेड बनाता जाता था। तो यहाँ ये पूरी एक जनरेशन थी। हमारे इंडिया के बहुत सारे जो लीडर जो जिनकी एजुकेशन विक्टोरियन एज में हुई है, आप उनके अंदाज और रख रखाव को देखें, उन्होंने वही जेंटलमैनली जो आइडियल्स था उसको फॉलो किया, तभी वो जनता के अंदर उस तरह से नहीं रह सके। गांधी जी तो एक एक्सेप्शन है, लेकिन आप जिन्ना को देखें और नेहरू को देखें, इनके अंदर एक तरह का ऐसा रिफाइंड आदमी आपको नजर आता है जो विक्टोरियन एज के जेंटलमैन की तरह है। तो ये जो कल्चर था वहां पर एक्सप्लिसिट सेक्सुअल पोर्ट्रेल, यानी सेक्स की बातों को सरेआम बयान करना और बड़ी तफसील से बयान करना, ये एक टबू था। तो ये एक प्यूरिटन माइंड था, लेकिन ये प्यूरिटन पॉलिटिकल पावर नहीं थी। उस वजह से इनको जो है बैन किया गया। बैन डेफिनेटली स्टेट ने किया था, और स्टेट में इन डेकेड में हम देखते हैं कि कंजर्वेटिव जो आउटलुक के पॉलिटिशियंस हैं वो ज्यादा डोमिनेंट हैं, और लिबरल जो है वो कम इसमें आते हैं। ये वाला जो टाइम पीरियड है 1930s वाला, जिसमें ये नॉवल जो है वो बैन किया गया था। तो इंग्लैंड में ज़ाहिर है कि हर तरह के लोग हैं, और शायद जो नॉवल का ये वाला था कंटेंट, शायद इंडियन इसको मेरे ख्याल में शायद ज़्यादा डाइजेस्ट कर सकते हैं बजाय इसके कि वो करते अंग्रेज जो है इसको डाइजेस्ट करते। और एक जो रीज़न नज़र आता है कि वहाँ पे कुछ ज़्यादा ऑफेंस फील किया जाता था सेक्स के हवाले से, वो मॉडर्न एज के शुरू में भी नज़र आता है। तो वो वाले प्यूरिटन ने नहीं बैन किया जिनसे मिल्टन का ताल्लुक है या क्रोमवेल का ताल्लुक है या एंड्रयू मार्वेल का ताल्लुक है, वो 17th सेंचुरी प्यूरिटन है। जी हेलो।
जी सर, कैरी ऑन करें प्लीज।
ये मीटिंग का टाइम जो है वो खत्म हो रहा है, दोबारा सेम आईडी पासवर्ड से फौरी ही आप ज्वाइन कर लेंगे, ठीक है? तो मैं फिर शुरू कर